Welcome. This is Family Hour as part of the YAHOWah blog. We have some of our favorite people here. I don't see Leah yet in the scene. Oh, I guess we have Leah. Or there we go. I can be small. Leah can be big. We'll just leave the whole. Let's just do the whole show this way, and we'll have Leah and Wookie as the big picture, and we'll have Kevin up there at the top. I like the background, Kevin. You have definitely done some work there on your background. Very artsy fartsy. I'm impressed for this program. And Kirk, it's always great to see you. I appreciate you being here. You're the one that asked for the change of venue. We were going to continue to do our ongoing series on Katsir harvest. But you said, no, I think it's too important for us to pursue this new direction. And then we have Leah and Wookie over there to camera right. My left, there's the Wookie. Wookie is the star over there. I did a teaser just a matter of, I guess 30 minutes ago, on what this show is going to entail. And it is a most remarkable occurrence. I would say that, the most important discovery in human history is the one that I was able to deduce a matter of several years ago, and that we have gradually fine-tuned and are now presenting quite boldly, that though David is the Messiah, he is the Son of God. He is the former and returning king. And he is the one who told us exactly what day, 600 years in advance, that he would arrive to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bokodim, and 1,000 years in advance of being crucified by the Romans in his fulfillment of Passover. He described his death by crucifixion 700 years before crucifixion even existed as a form of punishment. And throughout his Psalms, David explains the reasons why he made this decision, why YAHOWah accepted it. And it was his Bashar body that served as the Passover lamb, and his Nefesh soul that carried our guilt into Sheol to deposit it there, never to be seen again, to perfect us so we could all be part of God's family. This means that there was no Jesus, that Paul created the myth as a counterfeit through identity theft in 52 CE, as he wrote his first letter to the Galatians, one that YAHOWah actually predicted he would write exactly 666 years in advance through the prophet Shabbat, calling him out by name and calling him the plague of death. Putting the pieces of all of this puzzle together to reveal that there was no Christ, that there was no Jesus, that we are in a position, and now, we had the I have been tuned. I have been tuned by the rich.
So much better.
There we go. We have two different mics working, but I think that in this particular case, it was an operator error, maybe mine, on not turning on the little mic that we have here and expecting the big mic to carry the load. I'm told that just as a distraction, that I have an extremely booming voice, and therefore it is a challenge for our mics to not only pick up, it has no problem picking up my voice, but regulating it so that I don't blow others out when we do a cooperative show like this. So we're trying.
I love your booming voice.
Yes, we're trying a little different technique here. So that is the single most important discovery, I think, of human history. YAHOWah does too, because he certainly draws a lot of attention to our revelation of it. And second on to that was to come up with the timeline and explain exactly when everything was going to transpire and when YAHOWah was going to return with Dode, as well as when the next two harvests would be fulfilled. And how they would be fulfilled was, pretty extraordinary too. We've done a lot of programs on that. So as I had shared, ladies and gentlemen, about 2 weeks ago that I was returning to Daniel. Daniel is not one of my favorite texts to translate. I translated really comprehensively for the first time about 5 years ago, and didn't like it at all. It was a horrible experience because the first 6 chapters are so religious and so political. They failed Yahweh's test of a prophet, and by the time you've had to endure that, and now you're getting into some prophecy that has some viability, you're already worn out, and then you're dealing with what is in the 7th chapter, which is the keynote address in terms of identifying this individual who is the Antichrist. It's written in Aramaic. Our skill set is to translate the Hebrew because everything else apart from this is written in Hebrew and not Aramaic. And so this is the first time I have returned to it in 5 years. And the purpose of this return wasn't to determine the identity of the Antichrist. In fact, it's not even a term that I have in my vocabulary because, well, there was no Christ. So how can there be an Antichrist? Well, there most certainly can be a anti-Messiah figure because Dode speaks of him in the 9th chapter quite vociferously, saying that this is the Torahless one that is here to torment his return, to try to preclude his return. So as I promised, I went back to Daniel to fine-tune the timeline. I thought there was additional things we could learn. And in particular, I was a little bit uncomfortable with what day the Torahless one, the adversary's advocate, if you will, what day he was going to arrive in Jerusalem, what day he was going to act that was presented, at least in the way that most people translate it, that he was going to change somehow the schedule of the sacrifices, and what day that would occur. It's not what he does, actually. And then, when do the 2 witnesses arrive? I mean, it's supposed to be on my day planner. Because I'm one
don't want to miss that one,
of the
right?
2. I'm quite certain that at this point, I was going to keep the appointment, and that it's not one of those things I need to fret over. But I'd like to be accurate when I give the date. And I don't know if you recall, but for a goodly period of time, I said that it was apparent to me that the 2 witnesses are going to arrive on Passover.
Right.
And we had a couple of women that were part of our company at the time said, no, dates doesn't work out. It has to be on the 1st of Abib. Said, well,
they argued it and argued it.
And so, what the heck? Another bigger fish to fry, and it didn't really matter to me all that matter. We just went, okay, well, maybe it is the 1st of Abib. So I had both, and both throughout the text. So I wanted to determine, really, let's go back and let's figure this out, because these are all little details that help to flesh out our story and make it as accurate as we can make it. That's why I returned to Daniel. I did not expect what I found. I had, I don't have a lot of expertise translating Aramaic. Many of the words are similar to Hebrew. They have slightly different grammatical forms and the different wording in a matter of things, but
some consonantal shifts.
It was, and the other issue is that Daniel is such a religious text that things are hugely altered to make it seem like it fits the rest of the picture. Like, you're familiar, I'm sure, with the Ancient of Days, fellas. Have you recall that term?
Yeah.
Sure.
And we're told the Ancient of Days is a pseudonym for God.
Yeah.
Right.
But what it really means is a significant accumulation of days, long days.
That means you old.
It means he's old.
Right.
That's what it means. It just means he's old. Yeah, lots of days, many days. He's old. And first, so I know you don't. You just go back through it and you say, wait a minute, these what we have been fed is just so far from what these words say. It's time just to throw the whole thing out. So we had a great fellow that makes a lot of comments on our Facebook page. I like him a lot. I think he's a smart guy. He adds a lot to our discussion. And he went back into my old volume 1 of Babel and says, boy, you're going to have to redo this a lot to come to the conclusion that you have identified the Antichrist. And indeed, I started over again. That's why we went down to one show a day and didn't do a show last weekend, and we've been doing one show a day, is that I need to make my way through all of this. I've done, and we're going to begin in actually Daniel 12, because Daniel 12, I think, is the proper introduction to all of this, where we're going to meet Michael. And I'm going to tell you who Michael is, just as I have told you who Daniel is. And then we're going to go to the 7th chapter. And at this point, I'm halfway through it. And this is like a 100-page document. We're just halfway through that. We'll finish 7. We'll do 8, and we'll return to 9. But I should say that as it relates to identifying the person known as the Antichrist, I became aware because my closest prophetic colleague is Yeshaya, Isaiah. And the last time that we were very diligent and rendered Yeshaya 17 and 18 as completely and as accurately as possible, we learned a number of things. And one of the number of things that we learned is that, in fact, Israel will be thinned at the waist. That means the two-state solution will be imposed on Israel before the celebration of Shabbat, which is the celebration of 7 years before Yahweh and Dod return. That means it's the 22nd of May in 2026. And that means that the two-state solution will be imposed prior to that time, 11 months from now. Now, that also means that since Isaiah 18 describes the United States, giving some 70 attributes of the United States to say it is America, and really an arrogant American, a busybody American that's in everybody's business, that is the one who betrays Israel and perpetrates this two-state solution. That when Donald Trump won the election back in November, I immediately, in our next program, came on the air and I began that program by saying that Donald Trump is the great betrayer. He is the Neville Chamberlain. He is the one who is going to sacrifice the high ground of Israel, just as Neville Chamberlain sacrificed the high ground of Czechoslovakia. And that Donald Trump's Hitler is Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. And his Nazis that he's trying to appease are Muslims. And as a result, he will start World War III because Israel will not be defensible. And so I began to make that declaration boldly in all forms of social media and on these programs. I probably have upwards of 1,000 posts proclaiming this. And then I followed Donald Trump's verbiage and his actions and the bribes that he had received from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates, some $16.5 billion for Donald Trump and his family and associates. And it became obvious that this is the person that Yeshaya was speaking about. But you see, that isn't the only time that the treaty that severs Israel, that causes Israel to become indefensible, that awards a fake Palestinian state to the very terrorists who perpetrated Alaska flood. It's not the only time it's mentioned. You know when else it's mentioned, fellas?
Come in here.
Daniel 9. When Gabriel, who is Dode, God's most competent and capable man, tells us when he's going to arrive to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bakorim, dating it exactly. He goes on to say that in the last 7 years, there's going to be a Toraless one, his principal adversary, a human manifestation of Hasatan, if you will. And that he is going to be the advocate. Mm-hmm. And he is going to impose this treaty that is going to be sanctioned by a great number of people, but he will be the primary shaker and mover that makes this happen. And then he talks about the behavior of this Toraless one. The person who has already arranged the conference and announced what his intent is, actually arranged it for 3 weeks ago, but the 12-day war got in the way. Mm. And so they've rescheduled it for the last week of this month. And the Trump White House has already announced that they're embracing the two-state solution. And the conference is headlined by Donald Trump, Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, and Macron of France. And it will be to impose the Palestinian state. That's why at their dinner together, remember when a reporter asked Donald Trump, do you support a two-state solution? And he said, why don't we ask the foremost expert on this, sitting right Bibi across the table from me. What do you say, Bibi? And Bibi said, we support the full governmental authority of a Palestinian state. It's been done. And so it was obvious that I was right in this regard, but that's still is a long way from saying, well, okay, so he's the great betrayer. That's true. He is. But it's a long way from calling Donald J. Trump the Antichrist. And that is what we're going to prove in a series of programs beginning this evening. So with the fate of humankind and your soul hanging in the balance, I'd like to present the concluding chapter of Daniel for your consideration. It begins, and so at that time, Mikael, the one who is truthful and right about God, who is correct about the Almighty, who validates these connections with God. It is a compound of my, who is, ki, ka, ken, verifying these associations, connections, and comparisons to be correct, truthful, even emphatic and certain regarding El, Almighty God, who is representing the King, will have an important role in nourishing the growth and promoting your family's children. And he will take a stand and be present and accountable. And then after that, there will be a time of trouble, beyond which has never existed from a Gentile nation prior to this time. And during this time, your people will actually be saved. Everyone rescued from harm's way and delivered, who is found written in the book. Daniel 12:1. That's quite a beginning, isn't it, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Welcome back, Leo. So are you familiar with somebody who has been placed in this position by Yahweh, whose role it is to be right and truthful about God, whose job it is to represent the King, who is Dode, who is nourishing the growth and promoting the family's children, taking a stand and present and accountable prior to the time of trouble?
I might know a guy.
Yeah, there's only one. There's
Yeah.
only one. We talk to him daily. We see him daily
I know.
doing exactly that.
It's all true. And there's no one else in human history that fits that role.
Yeah.
And I fit this role in 1,000 different ways because there is 1,000 prophecies regarding this. And now he has a name. His name, in addition to Yada, the Bashar, herald, the Kol voice, the pei mouth, the Choder, which is the secondary stem, the sucker off the fallen rootstock, the Adamah Parah, this man who is productive as a bull. All of these things. And Vallejo, what is it that you're now searching for?
Batteries.
Okay, well, we
Family show.
having some family issues here to get this show working correctly, which means we don't turn that thing off after each use, probably. Nonetheless, there's no one ever that has even approximated any one of the 1,000 prophecies regarding this individual, the Nakar. He's a observant foreigner.
Mm-hmm.
He is referred to as Midod, next to Eldod, even in the Torah. He is the final Zeroah. And so this is a marvelous introduction to the very person who's going to be able to not only save those who are written in the book, those who are covenant and family of God, and he is performing this role not only for the covenant family, but for the remnant of Yisrael. But it is interesting with Yahweh that as a being who is infinite in time, Yahweh had the ability to take his prophets forward in time and even some back in time and to show them what occurred or will occur, and then have them go back to their time to write it down so that we would have a written record of those prophecies, which are really future history or ancient history in the case of some of the testimony. And so God can take a soul forward or back in time.
Yes, because in God's purview, there is no time.
Well, there is time. It's just the fullness of time.
Right.
On a photon of light, it's not that it's timeless, it's time full.
Yes.
So all time exists simultaneously for someone who lives in the fullness of the fourth dimension, and Yahweh is a seven-dimensional being. Therefore, in my case, he's taken me back twice that I know of. Once is to be there in the tent of the restoring witness with my king, Dod, as my Dod with Eldod in the Torah during the time of the meltdown of the children of Israel, where Moshe gave up. And Yahweh had to show Moshe that, no, I have this under wraps here.
I got a couple guys.
Yeah, I got a couple of guys. I know a couple of guys.
I got a couple guys.
Guys.
Here. Yeah, I got a couple of guys. And then it's happening here.
Yeah.
Because you say, well, Michael is named, and he is not an angel, he is a man. And Gabriel has been named throughout to Daniel, who is God's most capable and competent man. He's Dod. There is a third who will join us. Mm-hmm. And the cast of characters in the last days.
My favorite guy.
Yeah.
Elia.
Yada,
He is going to have so much fun.
He is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael and who is Yada? Elia means Yah is God. And of course, Dod. That's God's cast of characters. And so that is why this final prophecy from Babylon is introduced this way. So there are some 13 references to Michael in the Torah and the prophets, the Psalms, 10 of which address ordinary individuals from long ago who play no significant role. 3 depictions which apply to this particular individual are found only in Daniel, with the 2 other appearing in the 10th chapter. Therefore, what we know of him, his identity and purpose, is explained here from the role that he plays as well as from his name. The most overriding clue as to the nature of this individual is the recognition that Makael, one who is truthful and right about God, is a descriptive title rather than a name each of the three times that it is presented. It is a compound of several Hebrew words beginning with my, which is an interrogatory, encouraging us to ponder the who is being addressed. Now, this is followed by a contradiction, or a contraction, I should say, of ki, of ka, of ken, to emphasize something that makes it certain, or indeed to compare one thing to another, or to validate something with testimony that is irrefutable. And if ki, it means indeed speaking of someone who is certain, sure, and truthful, who is emphatic and reasonable. If ka, then this individual has a propensity to make the kind of comparisons and associations needed to understand. And if ken, then this individual's claims about Yahowah are verifiable, they're correct, truthful, and certain. As for Makael, it concludes with El, which is Yahowah's title, meaning Almighty God. Therefore, Makael asks those seeking to understand, to inquire about who is indeed confident and truthful, emphatic and reasonable about God, constantly and definitely making the kind of comparisons and associations needed to verify that what he says is correct.
I might know a guy.
God. You know a guy too? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we all know a guy at this point. More succinctly, Makael is the one who is truthful and right about God. As we would expect from such an individual, especially as we approach Dod's return to defend and lead his people, Makael is Sar. He's representing the king. He is Sar, serving the anointed leader by focusing on his family and of their relationship with God. And as a result, he is Sar, clearly designated and overtly authorized, resolutely empowered on behalf of the king. And there are, as I say, 1,000 prophecies in this regard. And Dod himself writes vociferously of this individual. So few things are really more important than recognizing that Dod is the Son of God, our shepherd and the Lamb, the Messiah and the returning king. The realization not only nullifies the aspirations of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, it presents the ultimate Yehud calling his people home. This is an essential truth that we find now documented throughout the 35 volumes of Yada Yahowah, and in particular in Coming Home. It is Makael's most revealing and valuable gift to his king, as well as to the covenant family. So next we're told that Makael will ha-gadol. He will play an important role in nourishing the growth of, while promoting al-ben-am atah, your family's children. This means that he will gadol intensely and vociferously distinguish himself through amplifications to empower the prophet's people, Jews. And if you recall, in Isaiah 11, we discovered that the Choder will be fortified by the Ruach of Gabarah, which embodies and enables, emboldens, if you will, him like in exactly this manner on behalf of the mission that has been chosen. He is Gadol. Further, not only will Makael Ahmad be appointed and supported while taking a stand on behalf of the chosen people, he will begin immediately prior to Eth Sarah. I don't even think there's anybody on the planet that was able to designate when Eth Sarah, the time of troubles, would begin, or even explain what's going to happen during them or anything about them. And yet this is one of Michael's primary contributions. It starts the 22nd of May of 2026, 7 years prior to the return. And we have documented everything that's going to take place during this time. And make no mistake, we are told that the resulting Sarah, time of confinement and adversity, will be the result of Goyim and their nations being more adversarial than at any time in Israel's history. Worse than Assyria, Babylon, Greece, Rome, under the Christian church, as at the hands of Muslims, Nazis, and more recently, even Marxists. This is the worst of the worst. And if that was not enough to correctly identify Michael, the one who was truthful and right about God, and place him ba'eth ha-he in this specific period, this contribution to Yahweh's family, we're told, will be matzah. It will be something that is found and then shared, kathab, as it is written in a book, such that Yehudim are malat, rescued from harm's way and delivered unto Yahweh during this time of trouble, which happens 3 times. Now, recognizing that this realization regarding Michael destroys the credibility of Judaism because he is right about God, Christianity and Islam, for both the same reason, let's be thorough in our analysis. When Michael is initially introduced, it is in Daniel 10:13, where he is Ichad ha-sar ha-rishon. Ichad means that Michael is either a certain one of, the one and only of, in this stated rule, or he is the first and foremost for this particular occasion. So he's not ordinary. As the Hasar, he is the leading representative of the king, a least pursuant to this particular mission on Dod's behalf, which would be prior to his return at the conclusion at the time of trouble. As a Sar, he would be authorized, empowered, and capable, so he will prevail even when challenged, and the greatest challenge of all was to show that Jesus Christ was nothing but a crude counterfeit of Dod, and that we need to eliminate any acceptance of this myth to have an appreciation for who Dod is and what he's actually achieved. Ha-Rishon reveals that he is the primary and foremost, and thus the principal person serving in this capacity. He is likely the first to ever do so. Rishon reveals that he would have begun conveying this particular message before anyone else. Therefore, Michael is the first and foremost among the representatives of King Dod. He is the first authorized and empowered to serve in this capacity. He serves to explain the king's edicts, the king's life, the king's lyrics. He serves as the king's Bashar Herald. Now, this is further affirmed in Daniel 10:14, which is in Michael's voice, and it reads, "Now I have come to provide you with an understanding of what will happen to your people in the end of days, because the revelation pertains to that time." And now you are witnessing the fulfillment of that prophecy, because we're doing exactly that.
Yeah, I think that guy's name is Yada.
It is indeed.
It's interesting. It says, happen to your people. He's a goy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Your people.
Yeah, he is
my people.
He is not only the one who comes out of Edom, which would make him a goy of sorts. Edom, of course, is named after Esau, that was Jacob's brother. So he unifies the family. Esau, Jacob's brother. He unifies the family, but he is referred to throughout prophecy as the Nakri and Nakar, which is an observant foreigner. He is specifically called in many of these prophecies a goy. And the reason Yahweh returned to a goy, I think, was threefold. One, he likes to come full circle in all of his stories, and he began this story with goy. Adam, Chawah, Noah, his wives, his sons, Abraham, Sarah, Lot, all goy. And then Abraham and Sarah had Yishak, goy. And he had Esau and Jacob, both goys. We don't have somebody called a Jew until his children. He began with goy. Yahweh likes to return to where he began, just like we began in the garden. We're returning to the garden. The second reason is the most important. There was no Jew available, not a single one. God says throughout the prophets, I looked and I could find no one that was willing to listen to me.
Yeah, we were too busy being religious.
And they, Jews told God to shut up and go away. They never wanted to hear from him again. So when you tell God stuff like that, you should expect that God's going to honor your request free will.
Yeah.
And I think the third reason is that God's message does appeal and apply to Yehudim and to Goyim, and God wanted to have a voice to the entire world, which is what he says throughout these prophecies. And when God goes about choosing people to fill roles that are particularly important, and this one is because he's responsible for the Shabuah harvest, the Towrah harvest, the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah, and of reintroducing Yahweh's name and God's son, Dod, back to his people and to the world. That's a big job. God picks people whose aptitudes and attitudes suit that particular mission. So there was something about my personality that appealed to God in trying to accomplish this.
Question. How inclusive, because Yahweh's message is inclusive. How inclusive is Judaism? Do you know?
How inclusive is Judaism?
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's exactly the opposite.
Even if you wanted to, the rabbis are instructed to run you off.
Yes. Yeah, they don't want people converting to Judaism. They particularly don't want goy converting to Judaism. There's a very long and tortured process. But no, they don't want so. They're very insular, and God's not. God is very open. It's the same Torah that's available to all of us, same covenant that's available to all of us. And so God specifically says when he introduces the observant foreigner that your job is to speak to the entire world and simultaneously with Yisrael, which is what we have attempted to do. So anyway, this is, as it would transpire as we're continuing to analyze this, while Dod is Gabriel, God's most courageous and competent man. Gabriel is not an angel. He is the man. He is Dod. And that Dod emerged from the past to convey these prophecies. Mikael, well, he would come from the future. Different directions we meet in the same place. So with time, God has this ability to maneuver time as if it were malleable. Now, the second of these three references to Mikael, who is responsible for explaining Dod's, Dod provides most of the prophecy. It's Mikael who is here to explain it to Daniel. And even the vision that Daniel sees, it's Mikael's job to explain that vision to him. And it is found in the 21st and concluding statement of the 10th chapter. So there we learned that his role was Nagad, to conspicuously report to us by ha-rashum, having been inscribed, ba-kathab, in writing in a book, emeth, which is trustworthy, enduring, and reliable. And it also reveals that he was and will be Lo Echad Shazak. He is uniquely contentious. He's very intense, even overpowering, in pursuit of the restoration of God's people. Now, this sounds a lot like Yada Yahowah, and particularly coming home, and of course this YAHOWAH blog. This is the attitude that God wanted brought to this occasion. And really, there is no other attitude that's going to work with his people. You are either bold and tenacious and tough and unrelenting, or you have no chance of getting past the stubbornness of Jews.
Not with my people, though.
No. So Michael is a Tsar, leading representative of the king and his family in this regard. It is mistakenly assumed that Michael is the name of an archangel. Not so much. You're looking at him. So if I look like an archangel,
you do to me, honey. But
okay, well, yeah. Nice to have your wife love you. But such nonsense. Yeah, that nonsense comes from the book of Jude in the New Testament, where there is a mythical dispute between Michael, the archangel, and the devil over the body of Moses.
Oh, God.
And it reads, durst not bring against him a railing accusation. Let me assure you, in those who venerate grave sites, the prophet's words matter. Well, his body was irrelevant. That's the one thing you learn about the fulfillment of Pesach, about the fulfillment of Towrah with the red heifer. The body serves a purpose, and then it's gone. And you're glad to be rid of it.
Yeah, if you're not looking at it as a cocoon by now, it's going to birth something much more beautiful.
You know, it's the whole concept of the Christian Mr. Christ being resurrected. No, that's the wrong direction, you know.
But I kind of like the idea of an antichrist. If there were, yes, absolutely. If there were an antichrist, I would be it.
I'm also anti Mr. Christ, but that isn't the intent of the term.
I know.
So Malak serve YAHOWAH, and he can deploy them to serve mortal men. And you read in the 91st Psalm exactly how YAHOWAH uses them in this regard. But they are seldom deployed to Tsar, represent kings. Moreover, there is no record of anyone named Michael writing anything which would Gadol have promoted the growth of YAHOWAH's family. In particular, while Malak have speaking roles, they are seldom vociferous, and they do not rely upon amplification, nor is their role to magnify anyone. And as we will discover in due time, Gabriel isn't a Malak either. He is instead the greatest of men. You know, therefore, Michael is the descriptive of a person who validates and verifies the status of man's relationship with the Almighty, and he will be present and accountable, appointed and supported prior to Yisrael's descent into the time of trouble. In fact, he will be on the job for that, at that point, 2.5 decades, 25 years of every waking hour, 6 to 7 days a week. Well over 100,000 hours prior to this time. The result is the books that you see behind me. Now, since there is no one using translations of the Torah and prophets and their insights derived from them to compose anything comparable to the 35 volumes of Yada Yahowah, which means to know YAHOWAH, especially now just 10, 11 months removed from the time of trouble, well, you are witnessing the fulfillment of this prophecy. And since I'm the first to deduce that Dod is the Messiah, the Son of God, and the returning King, who fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, and will arrive on Kippurim after I fulfill Shabbat and Towrah, there is no possibility of anyone else serving in the role of Michael. And therefore, YAHOWAH has positioned Yada to herald Dod's return as our king. And now also pertinent, Michael's role is to explain Daniel's vision so that the world understands it before it's too late. And with this introduction, I should have naturally assumed, well, you know, in this process, we are going to be able to deduce not only the timeline, which is why we came here, but who the players are. Mm-hmm. And the most famous of the players that is deduced here is that guy that is known as the Antichrist. Well, that's not the way the term is written here. He's presented as a Torahless one. Now, as bad as Rome and Roman Catholicism have been, what is about to unfold will be far worse. In the annals of human history, considering the blight of nations, even the bitterness of the Goy, nothing has ever existed which can be compared to the Tzara, the period of anguish, adversity, and of the adversary. All we have read has built up to this point. And that's a lot, considering the 25,000 pages that surround me. All free, by the way, at YAHOWAH.com. The confounding confusion of Babylon and the Bible was horrific, as it metastasized through Persia, Greece, Rome, and Christianity. But it will become more vicious still and deadly, because the worst is yet to come. Now, fortunately, it is during the time of trouble that God's people are going to be saved. And those who are rescued will find their names scribed in the book of life. Shabbat and Towrah serve as the bookends for the time of trouble, the beginning and the end. And so the text reads, and many important and infamous individuals of those who are asleep in the dust of the earth will be awakened. Some of these to restoration of life everlasting, and others to eternal scorn and shame, insults and reproach, accusations and censure, for having been abhorrent and appalling. Daniel 12:2. What do you make of that, Captain Kirk?
I'll tell you, it's odd. I didn't realize that everyone would be asleep, but I guess they are. And it's curious how I think it's going to be a very small amount. So
yep. I think you're on the right track there. The fact is that it only speaks of those who are asleep in the dust of the earth who will be awakened. It doesn't say that everyone who has lived is going to be awakened, does it?
Oh, no,
it just says actually many. It's Rob, numerous. Now, there have been 100 billion humans that have come and gone this way. It doesn't say there's 100 billion people. No, it just uses Rob, numerous, an undisclosed but significant quantity. So that's the first clue. And what does that mean? That means that the deduction that I made very early on, which is, I think, one of the most profoundly important that I ever made, which is that there are three destinations for human souls.
Yep.
And that the vast preponderance of people don't have a reward. They don't have a penalty either. Their souls simply cease to exist. It is dust to dust. No reward, no penalty, no eternal life in heaven or Sheol. Almost everyone who has lived on this planet had their life, and when it's over, it's simply
one and done.
Over. However, there are some people who will be in this altered state, this altered state of consciousness is really what the word means, yashen, who are going to be awakened, and they will have Pesach, Matzah, and Bokurim as fulfilled by Dode applied to them, so that they become restored to life everlasting. So these are people who passed away before Dode fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bokurim, because he provided the means of opening the doorway to life on Passover, and he provided the means of carrying our guilt away into Sheol, never to be seen again. You could not have known that prior to him doing it. No one could have known it. So even an Abraham and a Sarah could not have known that.
Exactly.
And so there are people who
Ruth and Boaz, they wouldn't know it.
Who would have no clue as to how God is going to resolve this. Mm-hmm. And so God just said, I'll put you in a state of unconsciousness and
sleep with your father.
And when it's time, I will raise you, and you will be the beneficiary of this, and you'll say, oh, wow, what a great plan. Glad this happened. Thank you, Dode. Because it's important that everybody that is in the kingdom of Dode, as we go forward, everyone is going to be there because of what Dode has done, which makes it possible for Dode to be king of forevermore, because every one of us are going to be appreciative of what he has achieved for us. And that means even those who have passed away before will be in this process. Now,
that also means 0 power struggles.
Now, there is also the possibility, just in these last 20 some odd years, that there are individuals. I know a really wonderful guy, Richard was his name. He had a website that reflected a lot on what we have
Richard
done.
McCord.
Yes, Richard McCord, and we communicated almost daily, and sometimes we fought like brothers, and sometimes we hugged like brothers. But Richard McCord, I would have every reason to conclude was covenant, and he had poor health and he passed away. He would be an ideal candidate for this, because he was not here to make the Shabbat harvest. We have 2 or 3 individuals who are currently part of the covenant who have really threatening cancer that is being held at bay somewhat, but whether or not they will make the next 10 months, we don't know. But I can tell you, they need to be part of the covenant family. They will be part of the covenant family. This is the means to take care of that. And it's only their souls, not their bodies. You don't have to care where you.
We're not taking
what happens
those
to your
anyway.
body. It's just your soul.
Yeah.
So those who are asleep in the dust of the earth, they will be awakened, and some to restoration and life, and others to eternal insults, reproach, accusations, and censure. And this is one of the reasons we came to know that there are 3 destinations for human souls, because of the fact that eternal life of scorn and accusation and censure is not death. And God speaks of death more than anything else for a soul.
It's not.
So this conveys all 3 opportunities.
Yeah, there's Muth, and then there's Muth.
Mm-hmm. So
You don't want that.
So after the arrival of Michael and his uplifting and enlightening message on behalf of the covenant family, after the time of trouble, even after Yahweh has redeemed his people, rescuing those written in the book from harm's way, God's going to deal with the most important and infamous of souls. Now, I think those who are being raised to eternal life in heaven, they're probably going to actually join us on the Shabbat harvest, would be my guess. And so the judgment of the others will transpire, I would be assumed, at the end of all of this. But, there would be no reason why God would have to postpone it. So there is the possibility that during this 3.5 years between the Shabbat harvest and our reinsertion, that we could take care of this, which means that it would be happening exactly at this time. You have 2 groups, and you now got 3.5 years. Let's go ahead and take care of that business. The advantage of doing it this way is that when we have the great wedding and the family reception and the great homecoming, and now we're entering Eden for the first time, this fellow that God is describing here, since he's responsible, Michael, he's responsible for making a judgment regarding these souls. It is a little unfair to say, we're all going to be having this great party. We're going to be camping out with God. The earth is returning to the Garden of Eden. Israel is restored. And by the way, thank you for making the sacrifice so Israel can be restored. But you're going to spend the next X number of days, weeks, or months judging all of the yucky people that have come this way. We'll see you when you're done.
Right. Yeah. No. You want to go to the party too, right?
I want to go to the party too.
Well, yeah. Right.
Listen, I'm going to do what God wants us to do, or me to do, and us to do. But yeah, I'd like to go to the party too.
Right.
And so this is a good way.
I'm a typical introvert. I want to be invited. I just don't want to go.
You don't want to go to the party.
Well,
This is
I
one
don't want
party
to get
you
your
want to
invitation.
go to.
I'll make an exception in this case. Yeah.
Yeah, but all our work's done. All the nastiness is out of the way, and we can get on with the wedding and the party.
I was hosting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Yahweh's house. So I'm gonna be there. Yeah. So this would give that opportunity. I kind of like that way of interpreting it. So it is important, I think, to see that there is this choice between Shamayim and Sheol, and that this is being conveyed in the context of Mikael, is it not?
Yes.
So it certainly would imply that Mikael is the person who is being tasked with this responsibility. Listen, I think what the deal is, if God says, listen, if you can spend 5 years in the sewer of Pauline Christianity and Muhammad Allah Quran, if you can do that, you can endure this. You've got the fortitude. I've asked you to do the toughest job there is to do, and then I asked you to do the job that Moshe, Dode, and I collectively couldn't do, which is to get the attention of Israel. And you stuck it out, and you did. And so, I think I can trust you to
sweetie. You do it all the time. It's so natural for you. You're so judgy. It's perfect.
And how many wives tell their husbands, "You're so judgy, it's perfect"?
It's perfect.
Right. I prefer Torah. You're very Torah.
You guys are all laughing because you know that when it comes to being judgmental, God picked himself a really judgmental.
Winner, chicken dinner.
Oh, you bet.
Go, baby.
Yes, but I'm also pretty certain it'll go fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Yes. So those who have sought to change the book, discard the book, or write their own book, will be awakened to Sherpa wa Deraon, contempt and censure, having been so abhorrent in the goading of others that they're not going to be very happy with the outcome. And while this will serve as a reward for the covenant's children and punishment for those who have harassed them, the preponderance of people will not be awakened for either of these eventualities. Only the most influential and infamous.
I got a list.
Either good or bad.
I got a list.
You do? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you've checked it more than twice. And we know this because Yahweh specified that Rob many times he says it speaks of status and renown or a significant quantity of people. He did not use whole, all. And that's the point. All right. Of particular interest, by transitioning from the arrival of Mikael to represent the king and serve as an important role in promoting the growth of God's children while taking this stand prior to the time of trouble to save those who are found written in the book and determining who lives with God or is incarcerated forever. Well, doesn't that strongly imply that Mikael is going to serve as the judge to make that determination?
Dum, dum, dum.
Well, maybe that's the reason that Mikael, Yada, has the spirit of Yahweh in him, so that he's not making this decision on human acumen, but is literally inspired by God to make the right call in this regard. But I would say, since God does give humans that work with him a great deal of latitude, because he does want to have their personality be conveyed in that message. That is just how he likes to work. It probably wouldn't be the best idea to yank the chain of the person who gets to make these determinations. Just saying. Something you may want to think about. It's like, Donald Trump had no compunction even going against the mountain that roared for him and Tucker, and then he went against the man that kept him out of jail and got him elected, and the richest man in the world, and Elon. And he's willing to take on anyone. But when we go mano a mano, I think he's going to find that taking me on is a really bad call. And it's and in the end, I get to judge him and condemn him. Mm-hmm. And he's not going to find that very pleasant, because this time I'm going to shut his little yap so he can't whine and complain otherwise. So therefore...
And then we get to torture him, right?
Leah recognizes that there is prophecy in Yeshaya that was at one time very, very uncomfortable for me to process. And I ran away from it every chance I got. And finally I said, I just can't run away from this anymore. But in the book on Chodorin, Yeshaya says, Yahweh is all about recompense. And that those who have passed away and have been tortured by significant abusers need closure. Because if you were in the Inquisition and some Roman Catholic and you're a Jew was torturing you with those really disgusting implements, so you're tied, you've done nothing wrong, and you are confined to their torture, and they prolong the agony just for their own giggles as long as you can, and you're screaming in your head, there's got to be a God. They have to be held accountable. So for closure, what God says is those people deserve to see that those who inflicted such pain on them suffer, because God is not into forgiving. I know that you did this, but I'm forgiving. It's nonsense. No, they deserve closure, and God's going to give them closure. He's going to give them closure by having those who perpetrated these crimes are going to receive 7 times what they gave out. And so this is the reality of it. God is going to be fair, both to those who have been hurt and those who did the hurting. So she's correct. So considering the name itself, Mikael, one who is truthful and right about God, his arrival prior to the time of troubles, his duties pursuant to the king, his work promoting productivity in others, and the role in determining who is saved and condemned. Mikael is none other than Yada, Yahweh's children, the man imbued with the 7 spirits of Yah, the Nakri, observant foreigner, Dod's Bashar, his herald, the king's herald, Zeroah, the one who cultivates the harvest, and Yisrael's Adamah Parah, this reddish bull who is so productive, the Zebo Men Edom, the one that Isaiah in the 53rd chapter says he is the one who is dressed in red and saves many. Now, as clearly as...
I know him as Honey.
You do?
But most will know him as Craig Winn.
Yes. It is true that that is the individual that God chose for this role. And he chose a bull, and he is vociferous in affirming that this was his choice. In fact, when he told Moshe how one can discern whether or not someone speaks for God or does not, he says, if somebody speaks for me, he knows it. I have made it abundantly clear. And such is the case here. Continuing, therefore, the circumspect with insight who are discerning, demonstrating the capacity to understand, will become prominent, obtaining very high status, being respected among heavenly beings, shining brightly while enlightening and admonishing, similar to the light of the expansive universe, such that they will be greatly valued for the numerous worthy individuals who will be vindicated for being right, becoming like stars as eternal and restoring witnesses forever. Daniel 12:3. Now, this is a tandem here. Yeah. So there are 2 people now that are serving as witnesses forevermore, and they are esteemed in heaven. God has a very high regard for these 2 fellas, and they are Elia and Yada. Yeah. Mikael, if you will, and Yada. And our job is to help those who are intellectually stimulated and interested to understand what can be known about God.
Good way to put it.
Yes. Yeah, it's God's point of view. This is an exceptionally important function. I have to turn down this light because Leia's getting strobed again. We don't know what is happening with her lights over there, so she's getting to be darker and darker as we go. But you still look good on that camera, so the camera is doing a marvelous job of picking you up, nonetheless, Leia. We had some chord management technical difficulties earlier today, which is why we're still struggling with a little bit of this, but we'll get it resolved. It's always a challenge to do this as we're attempting to do it with these live streams.
But we have the keeper of the chords over there.
We do have the keeper
Yes,
of
the chords.
Captain Cord over.
No, it's Captain Kirk, keeper of the chords.
Oh,
yeah,
Captain Kirk and keeper of the chords. Okay, I'll get my names and titles correct. There's shorts up there at the top.
You got too many. I can't even keep up with them. I had one every month.
Yeah, I know. It's quite a laundry list that. Yeah. And every one of the names too that Yahweh chooses for this role are descriptive titles.
They are.
Yeah. Even Yada is one who knows, who acknowledges. It became Yada Yahowah, one who knows and acknowledges Yahweh. So if we go back in time, because Yahweh has put this story together even before the earth existed. So we shouldn't really be surprised that there are certain personalities that are woven throughout the story. In his narrative regarding the fourth day of creation, symbolic of the era when Dod fulfilled the spring Moedim in year 4000 Yah, God revealed that there would be two luminaries who would be visible. The greater luminary representing the sun. Well, that's Dod. And Yahweh affirms it because in the 89th Mizmor, he says that Dod is returning as brilliant as the sun. So that's Gabriel. And he did fulfill the first three Mizmor, Pesach, Matzah, and Bakorim. The lesser luminary represents the moon, and he's Yada. He is the king's herald, and he's presented here as Makael, and his job is not only to fulfill the harvest of Shabuah and Teruah, he reflects the king's lights, which is why he's called the lesser luminary for the purpose of fulfilling the Moedim and the fourth day of creation. And it's why in that same Mizmor where Yahweh sings his praises to his beloved son and says that Dod's going to come back as brilliant as the sun is in his presence, he says so that the moon will be remembered forevermore. So they are a eternal team, brothers, if you will, the two of us. And this is so that Dod can return, as we said, as brilliant as the sun on Kippurim, as the moon continues to play the role of reflecting Dod's light. But he will not be alone, and that is the purpose of the lesser luminary. Dod will be accompanied by Sadak Ha-Rab, a great number of highly valued souls who have been vindicated for being right. We have three on screen. We have the keeper of the chords to my immediate right that would fall into that category, as well as many who are supporting this effort. There are many highly valued souls who have been vindicated for being right. These brilliant individuals have returned with the king in the VIP section from Shamayim as prior beneficiaries of Shabuah and the Teruah harvest, having capitalized on Pesach, Matzah, and Bakorim. So between now and then, there is a great deal to be done. There's much to learn and even more to teach. God's people will be growing in understanding, and they will enlighten and admonish others over time. Ultimately, all of Yahweh's covenant children will become like our Father. We will be transformed into light and to become immortal, perfected, and greatly empowered. The remnant who survives to greet our Father upon his return will be bright, well-educated, and alert. And therefore, the expansiveness of the universe, it's going to be our playground. These are the benefits of being Sadak, or right about God. Now, this known, there is more to this prophetic declaration. The hasakal, insightful, are, well, it's masculine plural, suggesting that Yahweh is speaking of his two witnesses. And they will pack a punch. They're going to wield words wisely, and they will be the most prominent individuals on the planet at this time. Their role will be to enlighten those who choose the covenant while admonishing those who oppose God's family. And of course, it'll be the typical ratio of about 1,000,000 to 1.
Even better, it's a big middle finger to the third wave feminists who hate men.
Mm-hmm.
I am not on your team.
So during the final 3.5 years of the time of trouble, Elia and Michael will have returned as spiritual beings, and upon their return, they will appear as light. And these two sarcastic and highly judgmental fellows will impress even the heavenly host. They will keep everyone entertained. And these guys are going to have friends in high places. Not only is their witness going to be appreciated and valued by the chosen on earth, it's going to resonate in heaven too. God will be listening, and he will approve. Also, encouraging, as a result of their witnesses, many Yehudim will come home, returning to Yahweh. They will be vindicated for having been right, enriched, and empowered for the eternal and restoring witness of God's word. So that, gentlemen, if that is all we got in our return to Daniel, I would say, time well invested. I was already thrilled, and I was saying, God, this is really great. I'm so glad we did this, but there's so much more. So Daniel's work as our scribe is now over. There's going to be a long intermission, and then the work of the witnesses will commence. And among their roles will be to leave the religious without excuse, so that when they are judged, they will have no one to blame but themselves. Now listen, as for you, Daniel, by the way, the Michael, Elia, and particularly Gabriel Dode, they don't like Daniel very much. You just don't.
I can only guess why.
He's whiny. He's gets to be religious.
He's
at
whiny,
times.
neurotic, paranoid, stupid. He's just like, oh my God, my people. Oh,
yeah, he is.
Okay.
He is very
He's a
much
stand-in for us.
A very poor listener. And
doesn't get it.
So anyway, they don't think a lot of him. So anyway, this is what they say. This is probably me saying this to him at this time because there's nobody else that's been introduced so far. As for you, Daniel, seal up this testimony. Make the message secure while precluding access to the meaning hidden within these words. Then place a stamp and a signature on the book until before the time of the restoring witness runs out. Well, that's very specific.
Wow.
Boy, as soon as I read that and retranslated that, I'm saying, holy mackerel, what he just said is that if I made an attempt to translate this and render it 5 years ago, which was a long time before the time ran out, I wasn't going to get it. Right. Even though God had empowered me with the 7 spirits and I was devoted to the cause, and I had spent at that point 19, 18 years at this.
It's got a time lock.
I did not have the wherewithal to understand it, because the breadth of knowledge that you must have on the whole picture and how it comes together and who does what with whom and where and when just doesn't give you the ability to do it. And so what he's saying is these words are not going to be understood until right up to the point that the time of this restoring witness runs out, and they run out in 10 months. So now when I read that, I also had Will, I better be able to get it. If I can't get it now, heaven, we have a problem. So that, it does. It puts a lot. You guys are laughing, but imagine being in my spot. I'm telling this to Daniel about me, such that now's the time. It's put up or shut up.
And 5 years ago, you weren't in a position to even. You were still grasping with Nakar. You hadn't even got to Towrah yet. You were still grasping with Nakar. Hey,
that's correct.
Me coming out of the cloud.
I had no idea that Dode served as the Passover lamb.
I think back then I was telling you to put your big boy pants on.
Oh, and I was. It'd be another 4 years before I figured out that that I was the Adam of Parah and was going to be sacrificed.
Yeah,
we didn't Didn't even know that the next harvest was going to be Shabuah. I mean, we were putting together a really good foundation, but we were so far from putting all of these pieces together.
Yep.
Right.
So there was no way to do it then. And when you hear what we're going to learn, and we'll continue this in future shows, and I don't know if you guys are going to be available tomorrow, but if we can get the keeper of the chords and Leah and you guys together, we'll continue this, because as you can see, as is our standard operating procedure with YAHOWAH, we never jump in at the conclusion. I told you the conclusion is, I have found and proven that Donald Trump is the Antichrist. That was not my intent. It is just what happened. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you,
the Torahless one. I'm the Antichrist.
Yeah, he's the Torahless one. So he is Satan incarnate. And so what we do is we put everything in context the way that God framed the issue, so that you have an understanding as to how we got there, why we got there now, and not at any other time. Yeah. And so that's why we do it this way. And we're just never going to change. It says many, and notably even rabbis and others who are infamous and exalted, will wander about aimlessly as if rowing up a waterfall, even with access to this information, which leads to understanding becoming more prevalent. So even with all this information, God said,
you're still not going to get it.
Nobody's going to get it.
Yep.
Famous people, infamous people, everyone's going to want to go around aimlessly. No one, even with this information being available, it says no one is going to get it. Okay. So this realization is one of the reasons we turn to Daniel 12 prior to analyzing the symbols presented throughout the 7th chapter. And an accurate assessment of the events is being foretold, even identifying the names of the people and the nations. And God is saying, well, Michael is saying, that it would be impossible to explain what you're going to hear prior to right now by this person, Michael, because YAHOWAH has deemed and determined it appropriate to disclose now, 10 months prior to the Shabuah harvest, and not a moment sooner. So as I share these thoughts with you in what now is the early summer months of 2025, just 99 months left until YAHOWAH's return. Only 10 months now prior to the commencement of the time of troubles. I have found that we are finally close enough to both that we will prevail in unraveling the mystery of who will be doing what to whom and when. So we're going to set the stage. We're going to present YAHOWAH's prophetic witness, and we are going to analyze it as completely as possible. I was particularly fond of the concluding statement, which read, Rab Shub Ra Rabba Ha Da'af. Many, and notably even rabbis, as well as others who are infamous and exalted, will wander about aimlessly while foolishly attempting to row up a waterfall, doing so at a time when access to quality information, which leads to understanding, is becoming more prevalent and more pervasive. I love the term rowing up a waterfall. I've used it, well, for the last 20 or 30 years. So
how do you roll up a waterfall?
That's difficult.
Rolling
up a waterfall is difficult. That's why the term exists.
I don't get it.
It can't be done, kiddo.
Exactly. That's
right.
why I don't get
it.
That's
why their success at analyzing these words and making sense of the message is as productive and possible as it is for somebody to row up a waterfall.
Okay.
That is the answer.
Why didn't you just say zilch?
Zilch, because they don't have a Hebrew word for zilch. The word zilch had not yet been invented. The word zilch had not yet been invented.
It's a weird joke. Okay. I wouldn't have got that one. No.
So here we are. Daniel has, I don't think, made this particularly easy, as we're going to find out. But you're going to learn as much, I think, as can be known. So it says, when I, Daniel, looked and beheld, in the end were present, then it says, then I, Daniel, looked and behold, the two. Remember we talked, there was two witnesses? The two in the end were present and appointed and accounted for, supported while taking a stand. One individual was now presented here as the means to channel speech and convey this message. And the other person was simultaneously present close by as a conduit for words with verbally expressive lips flowing with language. This is Daniel 12:5. Okay, so he's already introduced one of these two fellas. Is Michael. For better or worse, but folks, that's me. Michael. The other fellow, he has not identified by name, but he says he's very, very close to Michael, and they coordinate together. And this guy has verbally expressive lips flowing with language.
Uh-huh.
Hell yeah.
Fortunately, yes, we know from the last chapter of the last prophet, Michael, that this man's name is Elia, that God took expressly because his lips are flowing with language.
Funny.
He is a master roaster.
And just imagine the fun we are going to have with the dumpster.
Oh, well, yes, it will be, it'll be interesting. Anyway,
Can we call him Lips?
yeah. So this is speaking of the two of them. All right. So when viewed in the context of what we have just read from the perspective provided by Zechariah and Malachi, there are two witnesses. The witnesses are Elia and Yada, who is the one described here as Michael, but otherwise known as the king's Bashar herald. And in the context of the next statement, these individuals will be joined by the Messiah, by Gabriel, Dod. Collectively, they are communicating Yahweh's message to all who will listen. Their presence here in Daniel 12:5 serves to further underscore the realization that they are the ones being described in the glowing and enlightening commentary that is found throughout Daniel 12:3 and 12:4 that we've already considered. So what's also interesting is that Michael is not only the one named in the 12th chapter, he is being credited with being a conduit of words. The same is true with the other individual, such that both serve as conduits of enlightenment, which is how the witnesses are presented in Zechariah. They are conduits for the oil that creates the illumination in the menorah, this lamp over my shoulder. That is who they are. That's how they are described. And it's being reinforced here. So this means that Elia and Michael that Malachi is one that tells us about Elia, and that he will be joining with Michael, who is Yada, and we are going to herald the return of Dod and speak for God. As witnesses and prophets, we are conduits for Yahweh's message. God's Torah, which is his source of guidance and teaching, will flow through us. Now, at this point, Gabriel, Dod, returns, joining Michael and Elia. And as he does, one of the other asks a question that 3 of the 4 are prepared to answer. Then he said, to the individual of linen garments, that would be Dod, who for the purpose of the relationship was from the dimension above and beyond, the source of the waters of the stream. How long will this restoring witness be until the end of these distinguishing and intensely wonderful explanations and astonishing communications of things that would otherwise be difficult to understand? Daniel 12:6. Now we're getting to the very reason we return to Daniel. time, right? How long will it be?
Yeah.
Dum, dum, dum.
Particularly pertaining to the witnesses and these profound revelations that they are making. Well, so it should be obvious as to who asked this question, because those present at the time are Daniel, not the sharpest guy around; Gabriel, who is a synonym for Dode, the sharpest of all time; Elia, who isn't named until Malachi, but is the man with the greatest gift of gab in the history of Yahweh's prophets; and Yada, who's a fairly profuse speaker as well, and has come to know a few things, which is why he's called Yada, now referred to as Michael. Now, one of these individuals posed the question to the fourth, the one in Bod, linen, from Ma'al, greater dimensions, about how much time is remaining. And since everyone but Daniel would have known the answer, this question is being asked for our benefit, and it will be answered. Now, I suspect that the reason the man in linen wasn't identified on this occasion is because he was previously introduced as Gabriel, and therefore is, well, the king of Israel, Dode. He is the one dressed in linen because he's serving as the high priest to anoint the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant when he arrives on Kippurim, as is required in the Torah. Therefore, he will come from a higher dimension as king, and he will be above the witnesses in status, like way above. And since Dode will be serving as the high priest on the day of reconciliations, his pants, his sash, and his head wrap will be linen. This is the lesson we learned when translating Zechariah for the Moed Appointments volume of Yada Yahowah, and I have shared in that series with you. Now, Dode's appearances also explains why Michael was depicted as Sar, as representing the anointed king while serving his family. Dode is the king, and we are heralding his return. So this pronouncement indicates that the witnesses will be able to explain the events foretold here in Daniel and throughout the prophets. So whatever we may miss today will be resolved soon enough. But as for now, we know the identity of the restoring witnesses and that of our king. And the question is lingering is, how long from the point they engage can we expect the time of troubles to end? That's the question being posed. This question has nothing to do about the Torahless one. This question has nothing to do about anything that's going to transpire other than how long are these guys going to be here?
Right.
That's the question. How long are they going to be here? And the concluding time is the end of the time of troubles.
Yes.
So the question has been framed. And so when you look at a question, you have to look at how the question was poised and framed, and now it has been framed for us.
How long are the two witnesses?
Right, going to be here prior to the end of time of troubles. That many revelations and the miracles that transpire along the way include a plethora of things that have been so difficult to understand that they have eluded human comprehension up to this point, but they're all going to be resolved. So to answer the question of how long the world will benefit from these extraordinary explanations of what has previously confounded humankind up to this point, until the end, which is what this question asked, until the end, will require a more explicit commencement date, along with an affirmation that the terminus is being equated to the Ethzar, the time of troubles. At which point, we can work backwards to answer the question. But as for now, we should the end speak of the conclusion of the time of troubles, that date is known. Mm-hmm. When do you think the end of the time of troubles is, fellas?
Kippurim.
Nope, not Kippurim.
Towrah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is on Towrah. That is when Yahweh confronts all of the people who have come to trouble Israel. He says on that date, he is going to incinerate them, and he's going to restore the earth to the conditions found in Eden. Kippurim is not the end of the troubles. Kippurim is the wedding day.
Yeah,
man, you got 10 days to prepare for the wedding. It's
a fun time.
It's a fun time. God's not coming back in a world that is filled with religious and political whores. Yeah. He takes care of them at the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah.
You take care of them.
It is. Well, it's God's sin. Yes. He incinerates them. Yes. So that is the end of the time of troubles.
Yep.
And until you know that, you can't proceed with the prophecy. Now, there are not a lot of people that know that, because it's a very complicated process of putting together the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah. They thought it to be the red heifer, and the two-phase fulfillment of Teruah, and what God is achieving on Teruah on behalf of the homecoming on Kippurim 10 days later. But when you do, what you find is that the end of Yaakov's troubles is on the sunrise of Teruah. Okay, that would be halfway through Teruah, because Teruah has two parts, just like Passover. They have two parts. There's the evening part and the daytime part.
Yep.
And so it would be halfway through is when all of the time of troubles is over. So, should it speak of the conclusion of the time of troubles, that date is known. It's Yom Teruah, sunrise on the Shabbat of September 24th, 2033, with the arrival of the returning remnant. You need to know this stuff, Kirk, because you said you wanted to be in that white chariot, bringing the remnant back to Jerusalem. So that's that chariot takes off from heaven at sundown on Teruah, and it returns to the Temple Mount and Jerusalem, filled with all Yehudim who are not religious and are in a position to have what little political nature they have expunged from them. They will all be brought to Jerusalem at that moment, and they will arrive at sunrise. And it's at sunrise that the festivities begin for the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah. And they're not being brought into harm's way. God has eliminated the harm. At this point, every eye is focused on the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah and of Elia as the master of ceremonies. And it
is the premier show.
It is the show of shows, the greatest show on earth. And we're not going to be distracted by an army of jihadists that are going to be screaming Allahu Akbar.
No, because Leia doesn't like jihadists.
They're gone. Okay, so that is the time that the time of troubles concludes. And it is the time of the arrival of the returning remnant, which is going to become very important to this story, and of the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah. Adamah is a feminine noun, as is Parah, correct? Yeah. That's also important to this story. And it is known here, and he is known here as Michael. So now, when do we begin, if that's the end? Well, King Daud is answering this specific question. And as he does, we are provided, I should say, with an affirming clue. The source of the streaming waters. This is because on Yom Teruah, Yahowah, who for the benefit of the relationship is from a dimension above, will release a torrent of cleansing waters to purge the remnant of Yisrael. And this is also something that's important to know, because when they talk about this man's body being executed, the body is actually equated to a shower of waters. When God tells a story, he knows how to frame it. The words he chooses are beautiful. It says, then I listened to the individual, clothed in linen, that would be Daud, who for the benefit of the relationship was from the dimension above and beyond, the source of the streaming waters. He raised his right hand and then his left towards the heavens. And then he made a solemn promise based upon 7, in conjunction with the one who lives forever, that for Moed Moedim, 3 restoring witnesses to 3 appointed meeting times, and a half during the midst of another division, or pertaining to 3 shortened lives in the middle from Chatzi. Then accordingly, the shattering, the scattering, and the separating, influence, controlling, the set apart people will be over. All of these things will come to fruition. Daniel 12:7. Well, Captain Kirk, you volunteered to ride shotgun on the white chariot that picks up all of the final remnant of the children of Yisrael. Would that not bring an end to the scattering?
Well, yeah, you've got to bring them back, but you also have to wipe out the others in the black chariot.
Don't worry about the others in the background. It says here at this point, it just says the scattering and the separating will end. The scattering and separating do not end until that white chariot arrives in Jerusalem on the morning sunrise on the Towrah. So now we know exactly when this is going to be, because it has never happened previously. It will happen on sunrise, by the way, to a full solar eclipse, which is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's going to happen on Towrah as the sun rises on the 24th of September of that year. By the way, you know what day of the week that is?
Probably a
Shabbat.
Absolutely. It's a Saturday. That is correct. When God does his best work.
Yeah.
And so the controlling influence of God's people is over, which does pertain to wiping out all of the adversary forces, because they won't be able to interfere, and the scattering will be over, and all of these things will come into fruition. So now we know not only the day that we need to work backwards from, we have been given the specific time to apply, and it is to the witnesses. So we know the end of this time is sunrise halfway through Towrah. So how far do we have to go back? Well, it says Moedim. Now, in the past, everybody has wanted to render this as 3.5 years. They call it time and times.
Yeah. No, it's Moedim.
But time is eth in Hebrew.
Yeah. No, it's Moedim.
It's Moedim.
Yeah.
Right.
These are cycles of the 7 Moed.
Yeah.
And it's 3 full cycles of the Moed plus halfway through a cycle of Moed. Well, we're already halfway through Towrah. Maybe we can find another halfway point, and we'll have 3 full sets of Moed plus a halfway through. But it's Moed we're counting. Okay? So this has to end on a Moed, it has to begin on a Moed, and it has to be 3.5 series. That is what we're talking about here. And the thing that gets people messed up, how you can be wrong, is you're going to be given a number, but that number doesn't apply to this. That number, it answers an entirely different question.
Okay.
And you can't translate this 3.5 years, even though the 1,290 days that we're going to be given is very close to 3.5 years. You can't equate the two because they're quite different, and days do not pertain to the Moed.
No.
This means it has to end halfway through Towrah, and it has to be 3.5 Moed prior to Towrah when it begins. So we've been given the answer. That means you can't arrive as we had the women were insistent on the first of Abib, because the first of Abib isn't a Moed.
Nope.
It has to be halfway through one of the Moed to be halfway through the concluding Moed. So since the story began in the Gan Eden 6,000 years ago, Yahweh has chosen to engage through individuals, whether they be Adam or Chawah, Noah or his family, Abraham and Sarah, or the greatest among us, Moshe and Dod. On this day, however, Yahweh has chosen to communicate through his favorite son and our eternal shepherd, through his words of Dode. So the returning Messiah and King is making a solemn promise based upon the formula of 6 + 1 = 7 in concert with God, and of there being 7 moed in the annual cycle. Now, it may sound odd to our ears that Dode is referring to Yahweh as Che Ha-Olam, the one who lives forever and who restores life forevermore, but he uses very similar language in his Mizmor when he refers to God as the eternal conductor and the everlasting director. And since it's been, now 2,500 years at this point since Yahweh last spoke to his people, and nearly 3,500 years since they last listened to him, well, this is a nice reminder that God's still around. Te'eth is the Hebrew word for time, as I said. That's not the word that Dode used.
No, and I want to know which kids in the class have figured it out yet.
Mm-hmm. Good for you. Okay. So you know what day he's going to arrive.
Yeah.
Okay. So moed, which is among one of the most important words and titles in Hebrew. Therefore, Dode's prophecy, which Makael is explaining, is quite specific. They are announcing that the events being discussed here will play out over Moedim, 3 full cycles of 7 annual meetings, and then conclude in the midst of a 4th iteration. And since this is the proper interpretation, this period of approximately 3.5 years is slated to become sometime prior to Chag Matzah in 2030 and conclude halfway through the Yom Teruah celebration of the Moed when the scattering of God's people is over. Now, this cannot be the first half of the time of trouble, since it most certainly does not conclude with the return of the remnant or the conclusion of the time of trouble. But, if that were the case and we wanted to look at the commencement date being Shabu in 2026 with a conclusion during Sukkah in 2029, that would be the math, but it doesn't take you anywhere because it doesn't fit the way that the question was framed. But in this case, since it's addressing the last 3.5 years, when we either have to exclude part of Pesach in 2030 or all of Teruah or some of Teruah in 2033, followed by Kippurim and Sukkah, we're going to have to figure out how that pertains to these 3.5 cycles of Moedim. And while I suspect that it's just a curiosity, there is an alternative interpretation based upon what follows the Moedim by adding Chatzi, which is either half or a shortened life. The message could be that the 3 restoring witnesses associated with the final 3 Moedim will have lived partial lives. Dode did so in 33 CE when fulfilling Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim, and Yada and Elia will do so between Teruah and Kippurim. Therefore, if this rather interesting analysis of Moedim, and Chatzi is intended, then the participants they're all gathered here for this particular disclosure: Gabriel, Mikael, and Elia. Now, what we can deduce from the narrative is that pursuant to 3.5 seasons of Moedim, and in conjunction with the 3 who will have lived abbreviated lives and associated with these 3 Moedim, then accordingly, the scattered and separating, indeed the crushing and defeating hand controlling the set-apart people will be over. It will cease. Specifically, the white spiritual chariot described in Zechariah 6 will be gathering the final remnant of Yisrael from around the world at the outset of Teruah, bringing them to the Temple Mount. And at that time, Yahweh will be incinerating all who have come to crush this remnant. Then, as the sun rises on Yom Teruah, Elia will be orchestrating the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah, who will be quite conveniently killed by the Torahless one as the sun rises on this day. This is all contemporaneous and it is coterminous, if you will, with the removal of the scattered people and the obliteration of their foes, making this moment halfway through the first of the final 3 Moedim a perfect fit for the narrative. And in this scenario, we should be seeking absolute compliance with Chatzah as it pertains to the commencement of this time. We should expect the 2 witnesses to arrive on the 14th day of Abib as the sun rises on Thursday, April 14th, 2030.
That would be Pesach.
Yes, but not the evening of Pesach, daytime.
Daytime.
Which, while Passover is the day after the Pesach meal is consumed. Now, this way, guess what? Elia and Yada will have the opportunity to celebrate this Passover dinner with their father and his son in heaven. So that
I wonder how good the lamb is there.
I bet it's really good. So that we have come upon a very elegant solution. From this perspective, Dode, as Gabriel, is revealing that Makael, as Yada, is, and he is explaining that 3.5 annual cycles of the Moedim will transpire prior to this favorable resolution on behalf of God's people, setting up his return. With Yom Teruah denoting the conclusion of the time of troubles, the ingathering of Yisrael, the arrival of the witnesses will occur in Abib of 2030. Now, with the first of Abib occurring on the 4th, Passover dinner will be observed on the 17th at sundown. With sunrise on Thursday, the 18th, still Passover, as the arrival of the witnesses. Thereafter, everything will come to fruition. So that's your timing. Passover, the Thursday, the 18th, is when we will arrive. So that was one of the things I wanted to accomplish in this review, is to get that timing right. You'd hate to.
So we're taking an early morning flight, I take it?
An early morning flight from Shamaim.
Not to mention, it also blows the Seder dinner out of the water, because Elia ain't coming to your dinner.
Nope.
He's coming back. He's not coming to your dinner.
Yeah, you're good, man.
So true.
He is. He's not coming to your dinner, but
not
he is
coming
coming.
to
He
dinner.
is coming to ruin your breakfast the next day. I'll tell you that for sure.
Right.
Rude awakening.
Yeah, it'll be a rude awakening when he is there. But it's a good point. But we're arriving on sunrise on Pesach, which is a Thursday. The 18th is our day, which is the 18th of April in 2030. Now, this is the most exacting explanation for referencing this exceptionally important title and augmenting Moedim with Chatzah. This being the case, the final 3.5 cycles of Moedim, if we will begin with Chag Matzah, which includes the 3 Dode personally fulfilled, specifically Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim. Then once Yahweh returns his scattered flock early during Teruah, we can purge them through the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah to set up his Yom Kippurim, Day of Reconciliation's return, with this leading the family back to Eden on Sukkah when we camp out with God. By the way, when did Dode fulfill Pesach as the lamb? Was it as the sun set or the next day during the day?
During the day,
During
the next
the
day.
day.
Yeah.
During the day. So we're going to return as on Pesach as Dode fulfilled Pesach at the same time.
So we get to pick up where he left off.
Well, no, we're not. He's on that crucifix.
We arrive
on that crucifixion.
kind of,
On that crucifixion thing, it was one and done.
Yeah, of course.
No, we don't. It's not like the Catholic Church where they leave him on the.
Ew, no.
Yeah, they give him a new name and they leave him
no.
on the stick forever.
I don't speak Christian.
Nope, not going to happen. Yeah, he did it. We get to celebrate it.
Uh-huh.
And we'll be right there saying, it happened right here. He did this. You ignored him. Shame on you.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened, right on this day, 3 years shy of 2,000 years ago. So this ingathering will run from sunset in Jerusalem on September 23rd to sunrise the following Saturday morning. And so logic dictates Dode's return will be 10 days later on Kippurim, making October 2nd at sunset 2033 the precise moment. The statement made by the man in white linen affirms something that I surmised years ago. The time of Yaakov's troubles will be divided into 3.5 year periods, beginning on Shabbat, which affirms this because it means sevens. And while things will become increasingly difficult for Israel and for Jews starting in May of 2026, comprising a 7-year period of oppression for Israel, the worst will be concentrated towards the end. And that means that the fulfillment of Shabbat and this harvest will be at the commencement of the time of Yaakov's troubles on May 22nd, 2026, while the Towrah gleaning and sacrifice will transpire upon its conclusion, making it between sunset on September 23rd and sunrise on the 24th in 2033, a Friday and Saturday morning. Such is what we surmised in studying Yeshaya 17 and 18. So we should not be surprised that Dode encapsulated the moment his herald will arrive and the time the scattering and crushing of his beloved Yisrael will cease. And we're going to arrive at the same time he fulfilled Pesach. We run through this period right to the point that the crushing of his beloved Yisrael is over. Now, this is because he was the first to gather them into a nation and the last to protect them from every foe, particularly from the Philistines, who now have a group of people masquerading under that banner. Further, while he is the right hand of Yahweh, his Bashar is his right hand forevermore. As a result of the Adama Parah on Yom Teruah, Yahweh and his people will no longer be Nephat, separated, as he and his covenant family will walk through eternity from that point on, hand in hand. Now, considering what is revealed next, we must approach all of this with the utmost respect and appropriate urgency. Time is quickly running out. We read, "And I listened, but I did not understand. So I asked, 'Dear sir, what is the end result of these things?' He said, 'Go, choosing to walk through your life, Daniel. These words are sealed up, enclosed, signed, and stamped until the time of the final witness at the very end.'"
Yeah, basically he said, "Get out of here, kid.
Get out of here, kid. You've done your thing. You wrote it down. I'm not answering your question. You're not going to understand, but I'm telling you who will and when they will, which is what we need to know." He said the final witness at the very end will explain it.
Well.
So here we are. Now I think we'll just take it just a wee bit longer so we get our full hour in our 2-hour program. And it takes us into the next statement, and we'll pick it up here, and maybe you guys will have some time available tomorrow. If not, on Sunday, and we will continue with this. So while we do not have to know everything to benefit from what Yahweh is offering to fulfill the mission God has tendered, it's important that we remove the seal and that we resolve this puzzle before the upcoming Shabbat harvest, including identifying that guy that Daniel describes as seeing he is a really old dude with a really big mouth and some weird hair.
Oh, I know a guy with weird hair.
Yeah, that's how he describes him.
Oh, did you know that he, before this term, that he actually had his hairline surgically
Of course,
reduced?
Yeah. I can tell you, Daniel was thought his hair was more like a goat's. So yeah, he describes him.
Wait till Eliar gets
Oh yeah, he describes him that way, and he just said, "God, what a man! What a blabbermouth! I mean, the guy can never stop talking."
He loves the sound of his own voice.
Yeah, he has an interesting way of depicting him. But we'll get to that. That is for another show. Hopefully, we'll get to that in our next 2 or 3. So here we are. I think we're thrilled to have been able to deduce what we have thus far, and there is so much more. So that said, we're not required to be dogmatic or pretend to be know-it-alls. Even Moshe failed on occasion. So did Dode. So to prevail, all we need to know and understand are the elements of Yahweh's plan that are essential, recognizing that every nuance is not life or death. Our relationship with God is not going to suffer if we struggle in trying to determine the names of each horn, for example, although I'm going to tell you their names just because, well, that's my job.
You can.
And I can, and we don't have to describe the Torahless one and name him to do this job, but we are,
right?
Because, well, we can, and it's our job to do so.
Yes.
Also, we should appreciate the reality that there are things Yahweh does not want openly disclosed, at least not too early in the process. But, we are now at the cusp. We could be 2 weeks away from the announcement of a state carved out of the heart of Israel, which is the most important determining factor as who is the Torahless one.
Yeah.
So if we don't do these shows and get all this information out so that when it happens, they say, oh, that's exactly what God said was going to happen. Yeah. We have to do this now before it is announced. So, Kirk, you were right in saying this is what we needed to move to. And it's right why we need to continue this over these next few days. We need to get this out so that we can say, yep, told you exactly this was going to happen, and this is why we knew it. So it's important that we solve this puzzle for you. Now, in 24 years of translating and analyzing, I've seen many things, but I've never seen the rarest of stems, the hitpael, deployed with successive verbs. It is uncommon because it reveals that those being purged of religion and politics are being perfected, especially because they have avoided being misled and influenced by humankind's most controlling stimuluses, politics and religion. It is particularly revealing at this point because this is the purpose of the Anima Parah and his sacrifice on Towrah. A great many will be purged of prevailing influences, cleansed as a result of choosing to examine religious and political constraints, independently purified and white as a result of avoiding societal pressures, and thus they will be refined, benefiting from having been tested and proven right. However, those who will be condemned for acting inappropriately, perpetrating religious and political crimes, none of them will make the connections to understand. And yet, the ones with insight, who are discerning, demonstrating the capacity to be observant and circumspect, they will assimilate the information in time to appreciate the proper conclusions. Daniel 12:10. This is something I don't think, ladies and gentlemen, we could have understood until quite recently, because I don't think there was anybody who had previously identified the purpose of the Anima Parah of Numbers 19 and purging and perfecting the adulterous woman of Numbers 5 so that she could be betrothed to her returning king, who is Dode on Yom Kippurim, meaning that Yeshayahu was right when he said twice over that the choder is the parah, and that the parah will be offered on Teruah to purge this mortal remnant of Yisrael. And then we're told in Zechariah that Yahweh is bringing them in at this time for this purpose, and that there will be a great many who are purged, because not only will Elia and I have attracted a large crowd who will be, gathered around the Temple Mount, because they're going to be jihadists, coming all over for them. And so they're going to be protected by us there, and they will be listening to us there. But also we're going to be gathering them from all over the world at this time. And so there's going to be a great many, and they're purged by the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah. And they're purged by the flames that Yahweh is going to ignite, by the surging waters he's going to release, and the ashes that are mixed with it, and the narrative that Eliyahu is going to deliver that will be very similar to what he says and does and did 2,888 years previously, when he went through the dress rehearsal for this very event, which is why he was chosen to do it. He's practiced at it. And so a great many will be purged of the prevailing influences and cleansed as a result of choosing to examine religious and political constraints. They will be independently purified, and they will be white. What color is that chariot that picks them up from around the world, Kirk?
It's the white one.
What does it say right here?
White one.
It's the white one, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they're going to be refined. There's going to be benefit from having been tested and proven right. And yet there will be the black chariot too, isn't there? And the black chariot is the one that picks up those who are condemned, who remain inappropriate. They're continue to be religious, and none of them will make the connections to understand, and so they're hauled away.
Don't priests wear black?
Don't the Haredim wear black?
Haredim wear black. Imams wear black. Yeah. They all belong together.
When you see a parade of Muslims down the street now, they're all in black. Yeah. That black is a religious chariot, baby. Mm-hmm. They're all color coordinated. Yeah. Yeah. Who would have thought?
Black is the new black.
Black is the new black. This is the revelation for those who are discerning and who are observant, so that you can make the proper conclusions. So this statement is actually far more important than establishing dates. It adroitly explains the purpose of the Adam of Parah and the Zebo Men Edom. The intent of his sacrifice is to purge the religious and cleanse the political of their guilt, so that once refined, they are ready to meet their king and to be addressed by God for the first time, in case of Jews, for 3,470 years. This has been, a very long time, 3,000 years for Dode, since he addressed his people in this way, 3,480 since Yahweh last spoke to Yehudim. That's a long time.
And aren't you ready by now? Aren't you tired of schlepping stuff around the world to move to every place, and they hate you there? Aren't you ready to go home to Yahweh?
Just go home.
Like I am.
Yep. So our king is reinforcing the fact that the fulcrum upon which a soul's fate pivots downward is religion for most, and politics for many. And those who embrace either are ineligible for Shamayim, and they're disqualified from the Bereth. The conditions of the covenant are quite clear. We must walk away from a reliance on human institutions, disassociating from Babel, confusing commingling present within religious and political cultures. It is only then that we are permitted to walk to Yahweh to be perfected. So while those who will be right in this regard, who pass this open book test, the books are all behind me, and you can check them out for as long as you want. And there is no fines for putting them back on the shelf late, or even a charge for your library card. It's all free.
Nope, all free.
Yeah, I did check, because we did a program the other day on what the cost was of each of these series, and I wanted to make sure that we were right. And we said that it was zilch, even though, because we do have that word now. It was, in fact, nothing For any of them, and for all of them combined, it is still zilch. So this is there are really only two opportunities now to take a ride off the planet. The last will be Yom Teruah, as the sun sets on a Friday evening, the 23rd of September, 2033. And this will be the final gleaning, and it is reserved for Yehudim and for Israelites. Some 7,000 will make this particular harvest. However, those being purged on the day of the herald, as the sun rises on the Shabbat, obscured as it will be by the moon, which is appropriate for this one moment in time during the solar eclipse, they're going to be cleansed of all prevailing societal stigmas, political platitudes, and religious rubbish. This surviving mortal remnant of the set-apart people represent the adulterous woman who is cleansed by what is perceived as the red heifer, so that she now can be betrothed to Dode as the returning king. These are also the individuals who will be gathered into the white spiritual chariot and brought to the Temple Mount and harvested really from around the world at this very moment. And they will have been selected precisely for one reason. A great many valuable and worthy people will be purged of prevailing influences and cleansed as a result of choosing to examine religious and political constraints, independently purified and as white as a result of avoiding societal pressures. And thus they will be examined and refined and benefit from having been tested and shown worthy and right. And as Kirk noted, even Laban takes a special place and meaning in this case, because they will be airlifted into Jerusalem on the Laban white chariot during a worldwide spiritual examination of the remaining Israelites, this final remnant. And once in view of the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah, this bloody red man who is a productive bull, they will be purged in accordance with Numbers 5 and 19. Moreover, while the bull is Makael Yada and the returning groom is Gabriel Dode, we got these three fellows here for a reason. Elia is the master of ceremonies. That is God's cast of characters in the end. That's why they're all gathered here in Daniel 12. We're telling you how to get out of Babylon. God's last call is to come out of Babylon. We got the team assembled right here saying, this is the way out of Babylon, baby. This is your last chance to come out and come clean. Indeed, by the way, it's coming full circle. When the covenant was created with Abraham and Sarah, what had they just done?
Walked away from Babel.
Yeah, walked away.
We're coming full circle, aren't we? So it's going to be the greatest show on earth. As Yahweh releases the cleansing waters beneath the Temple Mount and ignites the purging flames from around the sacrifices, Elia entertains and enlightens those who have gathered in Jerusalem in anticipation of the king's return. Oh, by the way, as we go back to the 7th chapter and we find the identity of the Torahless one, this Antichrist, God's going to remind us about these flowing waters again, and the flames and the sacrifice of this individual. It all is right there. You know, there's this Christian eschatology that says that the Torahless one, their Antichrist, gets killed and he comes back to life. No. When you read who does what to whom in it, he kills me. I'm the one who's killed. So no, he's and
then Leah kills him.
No, he doesn't get to get killed. He doesn't get that benefit. He does not die.
Oh,
he gets eternally incarcerated. You might want to kick him a few times just for the fun of it. But he's really got really fat legs and fat ankles now. So he's an easy target. It bruises very easily. He has vascular disease. Anyway, it's all presented here beautifully by the Messiah Dode, and we're going to hear it again in the vision in Daniel 7. So indeed, this is a rewarding time for Yahweh's family, but it is also Judgment Day for those who have led others astray. Religious and political leaders will be tried and convicted of their crimes against man and God. As a result, they will be collected in the black spiritual chariot. There are many things which Yahweh can be, which we can be certain about Yahweh, and one of these is that there is no hope for the overtly religious or the overtly political.
Hell no.
They will remain clueless even when given access to the truth. Their faith and that which they have chosen to believe will have rendered them impervious to evidence and reason. And we will not waste our breath with them. We cannot help them, and they will not listen to God. And so since they won't listen to God, Elia and I will do no better. The time will come, and it will be essential that the surviving Jews properly assimilate the instructions contained in this concluding statement of Daniel 12:10. It is by being shakal, observant and circumspect, demonstrating the desire to diligently explore the evidence and then reason our way to understanding, that a ride within the white chariot becomes possible. That's your ticket. God is challenging his people. He's saying that if they want to listen to his witnesses, then they will make the connections to understand before it's too late. Well, so far, so good. Our appreciation of the nuances of Michael's explanations and Dode's prophecy on how Elia will engage and advance the goals on behalf of the set-apart people has been reasonably exemplary. But what would we expect? It's being explained by Elia so that Elia can explain it. It would be pretty damn embarrassing if Elia couldn't explain what Elia's explaining. Now, would it?
Yeah.
Or I should say, Michael is explaining what Michael is explaining about Elia. It's all being laid out for us in a very systematic way. Now, to be fair, since no one has put all these pieces together previously, the entire puzzle now and picture is being revealed for you for the first time. As we go through these programs, you're going to know exactly who is going to do what to whom. And so you are prepared. Yeah. And so when you witness the next phase of this and the creation of the Fakistinian state, you're going to say, I knew that was going to happen. And it is another validation that I can trust God's witness. Now, to be fair, considering the source of this challenge is the prophet Dode, we should be aware that he is the smartest person who ever lived. Further, he had a distinct advantage of being Yahweh's chosen one, God's beloved son, the anointed Messiah, the most prolific of the prophets. And so Dode was also the one whose 3 lives would span all of this time. Now, the final half of God's timeline from before 3,000 Yah to well after 6,000 Yah. So what may have been easy for him will not be quite as effortless for the rest of us. But fortunately, we don't have to be as smart as our shepherd to be among his sheep. Also helpful, since Michael is the one tasked with explaining all of this, and Michael is the one who is explaining all of this, he does have some advantages in trying to explain all of this. And speaking of knowledge, it seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it? That's why we went back to the beginning. You got to know who the players are, why we know what we know. And well, speaking of knowledge, it is Michael's responsibility to cultivate the Shabbat Katsir. And during this harvest, the Tamed, the constant and enduring, will be withdrawn from the fray before the time of troubles. Yahweh's love for his covenant family will cause him to remove his children, and at a time, God will exert the energy and the force that is required to raise and empower thousands of souls. Now, the reason I'm explaining this to you is what follows is mistranslated everywhere. And until you know what God is actually saying here, you're going to get it wrong too. First time I went through it. I said, I don't know how you get there, but nonetheless, this is what everybody says it means. So it's written such a way. I said, all right, I'll go with the majority. But no, it took a little while. I mean, I had to look up every use of this word. But when I took the time to look up every use of the word, it was right there in the open. It is after the fulfillment of the promise of 7 on the 22nd of May, 2026, that in our absence, Hasatan's corporeal presence will be announced that he is God, fulfilling Yeshaya's prophecy about Halal ben Shakar in Isaiah 14. And in a moment, you're going to know that exact date too. Okay, so this goes, and this is really important to stay focused on this, because this is 2 entirely different statements. The first one is, we just talked about the purging of all these people. And
right.
So this is because from before this period, before any of this takes place, and out of this time, so that you're not subjected to this time, the constant and the enduring, the tamid, the continuously unceasing, those who are not interrupted, the enduring. It's from an unused root, meaning those who stretch out and continue, reach out. They're going to be removed, and they're taken away by the exertion of a tremendous force. Shabbat. That is when the upright and enduring, the consistent, the determined, that is when they will be taken out of this period, removed from this period. And God's going to remove them with tremendous force because they're all empowered. They go from material to spiritual, which requires that E equals MC squared. It is a square of the speed of light to make this transformation. Enormous power. It's like
bigger than Elon's rockets.
Oh, it's like a nuclear bomb for every soul.
Yeah, well, there you go, Elon. You want off the earth?
Okay, so it says, first of all, there's going to be removed from this period the enduring and the constant, and God's going to apply tremendous force to make that possible. Then the lifeless and devastating, the appalling abomination will be offered, appointed, and brought into effect for 1,290 days. So it says here that it is the shamim, the desolating and damning, the terrifying and horrifying, the ruinous and ravaging, the stunning and stupefying, lifeless, devastating, and appalling, shukutz, abomination, religious filth that is associated with a detestable pronouncement of a false god, will be offered, will be appointed, and brought into effect for 1,290 days. Daniel 12:11. Well, initially, I was stumped by the fact that we are not told what Tamid pertained. For better part of 2 millennia, it has been assumed that the inspiration of this statement simply forgot to disclose the thing being censored, requiring publishers to add it. And most chose sacrificial offerings.
Of course.
The termination of the sacrificial offerings. Well, there's a problem with that. It doesn't say sacrificial offerings.
And there are none.
And there's another problem with that. There are none.
There are
and
none.
there's another problem. They aren't going to be reconstituted.
No.
Why? Because the rabbis have created this enormous, complex, Talmudic horseshit around not having a temple so they don't have to have any more sacrifices. They're not about to go back to them. They're not about to be reinstated.
Nope.
And so they can't be terminated because they aren't continuing. They haven't continued now.
All we got are chickens.
Yeah, they haven't been continued now for 2,600 years. and no one's going to start them
Nope.
now so they can be discontinued. So it was utter hogwash, and no one could figure out why it was utter hogwash, but there it was. And so you just have to render the word accurately and don't add anything to it.
You mean like the religious do?
Yeah. So, however, it's just not reasonable, right? Because, as I say, there have been no sacrificial offerings conducted since the Romans tore down the Second Temple in 70 CE, and they aren't going to be reconstituted by rabbis because they have developed elaborate workarounds throughout the Talmud for these sacrifices as a result of not having a temple. Moreover, the verb shur means removed, as in taken away. Taken away, removed from the planet. Gone. Doesn't mean cease. He's not taking the best of us and causing us to cease. No, he's removing us. And there's no continuation of something that is being seized because it doesn't exist.
All right. So like it just makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you horrify the woman by showing her the worst of humanity? Of course he's going to take his children out of there.
Mm-hmm. Correct. A loving father would do so.
Yes.
A loving father does not put his children into a home filled with toxic vipers, and that's what the earth is becoming over the 7-year period. He does not allow his children to go into the decadent coliseum of religious carnage, which is what we're going to endure. So he is going to bring 2 of his kids back, Elia and Yada, and it is our job to be on the Temple Mount and to encourage God's people to return to him for this Teruah harvest, and then the Teruah sacrifice of the red heifer, and then Dod's return on Yom Kippurim, so we can enter the Garden of Eden. But Yahweh is going to reinstate the temple of the tent of the restoring witness is going to be there. So we have a nice place to hang out. The Temple Mount is going to be cleansed of all religious rubbish. So the view is going to be uncluttered, and we're not there to debate idiots. If somebody has a really crappy attitude, you can just vaporize them with a word. So it's going to, and it just needs to be done. So we got the long straw, the short straw, however you want to look at it. So as a result of these religious editions by Christian publications in particular, all of which require Gabriel or Michael to be inadequate communicators, requires artificial prophecy to have their result to have absolutely no chance of being fulfilled. Since there's no chance of being fulfilled, and since Dod or Michael didn't say what was being curtailed, and they didn't even say curtailed, they said removed. And they didn't say what was being removed other than the word prior is those who are consistent and enduring. So those who are consistent and enduring are going to be removed. That is Shavuot. So upon investigation, I concluded that Tamid doesn't convey continuance of some unspecified something for a number of reasons, one of which is that whatever it might have been was not mentioned, rendering the declaration moot. And I'm not about to accuse King Dod of making a careless omission. In searching for answers, I canvassed the Torah and found that Tamid is used on occasion to describe the regularity of the twice daily offerings. But they haven't been in effect since, shortly after Moshe gave up his day job as a shepherd. And they just aren't meaningful in the overall scheme of things. It's not like a Moedim. This is not like Passover and Matzah and Bakurim.
No.
This is a little twice daily offering. It's
just
meaningless.
a free will. It's a free will offering.
Yeah.
That's it.
And they just aren't meaningful in the overall scheme of things. And clearly they won't be reinstated so as to be curtailed either. And if they were reinstated and curtailed, no one would even notice.
Whoa. Question. The sacrifice. It doesn't say daily. It's like yom.
No, it doesn't even. It's not. Don't even go there.
Okay.
It doesn't apply because
No,
it's meaningless. So in Numbers 4:7, I discovered that Tamid speaks of the bread of continuity, and that's nice, but it's certainly not germane to this narrative. And in Hosea 12:6, we're encouraged to be constantly and continually observant and rely on God. Well, that's astute, and it also takes us in the right direction because it pertains to this use of the word. Elsewhere in his Mizmor, Dode, who is speaking here, he instructs us to constantly express our admiration for Yahweh. Well, that would get you on the ride out of town on Shabbat, wouldn't it? And to rely upon him so that he can continually preserve our souls. So it looks like Dode has correctly identified the meaning of the term, and he uses it in Psalms 34:1, 71:6, 14, and 40:11. And while that is especially relevant, Dode underscores this in the 119th Psalm by encouraging us to be constantly tamid, reliant, and to tamid, constantly, continually be observant, closely examining, carefully considering the Torah, which would get one included in that harvest. That would be 119:44. Now, along these lines, Yahshua promises that Yahweh will continually guide those who respond appropriately to him, and that his people who are steadfast, truthful, and right will continue to exist. Therefore, the most accurate rendering appears to describe those who endure because their relationship with God is consistent. Moreover, there is no case where tamed is used in conjunction with the continuation of the Moedim or of the Shabbat observances, ever. Therefore, by applying the most literal response to both tamid and to shur, I was able to render the opening statement. So because of this period and out of this time, the constant and enduring will be removed and taken away by the exertion of a tremendous force. He's just described the participants of Teruah. Not Teruah, of Shabuah. Shabuah. So this is a depiction of the Shabuah harvest prior to the time of troubles. Yahweh is sure removing those who have been tamid, constant and steadfast. We've talked about that so many times, that to remain part of God's covenant family, you have to be constant and steadfast. He is not looking for people who, say, "Oh, I busted in the door. Here I am. I'm going to go take a nap. Wake me when it's time to celebrate." That's not what one does as part of his family. Nor do you get in and start belly aching and say, "Yeah, I want to change a few things. I don't like the drapes or the carpet here. We'll make some changes." So with the covenant family withdrawn, Satan's corporeal manifestation, who now we know his name, and I refer to him as the Torahless one, although POTUS will fit quite nicely too, will be making a mess of things. We should expect that he will say and do that which will be Shemim, appalling. Boy, we get that on a daily basis.
He's already got that picture going.
Both desolating and damning. Well, he's 3 for 3.
Yep.
He will impose all manner of shikuts, vile and religious filth. And the crime of crimes is the essence of religion, where Satan claims to be God. This is the story that Yahshua tells in between the two important revelations that we have been considering. Choder, Yahshua 11, the 2 harvests and the role of the parah in Yahshua 17.
Yep.
Anybody done the math and figured out what's halfway between those two? The 14th chapter of Yahshua, where do we learn that Satan is going to claim to be God? 14th chapter of Yahshua. There we are.
And only the devil himself would
Friday,
find Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah. With this being Gabriel Dode speaking and Michael Yada interpreting, they have provided a number of definitive clues with Shamim. It presents that which causes widespread desolation and devastation, both horrifying and terrifying, indeed stupefying. Further, Shekwitz is a religious term by nature, and it is being offered at a specific time, such that the devastating religious edict endures 1,290 days, which is just over 3.5 years, thereby overlapping some of what has been previously stated. More specifically, rather than 3.5 iterations of the Moedim, because this fellow doesn't care about the Moedim.
Nope.
It's 1,290 days, is just shy of 2 weeks beyond 3.5 solar years. So we have two ways at looking at this period. It can commence on Shabuah, which is 5/22/26, or it can conclude on Yom Teruah, which is 9/24/33. In the unlikely event, it takes us towards the end of 2029 by starting at 7/7. The terminus date would be 12/13/29, but that doesn't get you anywhere, and it's inconsistent with what was just said, because we were told that this time would end in 1,290 days, and we've already told what the end date is, which is Teruah. So, since it would be unreasonable for Satan to declare that he is God, coterminous with the withdrawal of the covenant family, and before he's even arrived, and senseless for the edict to conclude halfway through the time of troubles, we should work backwards from Satan's undoing on Teruah. This conclusion is reinforced by what we have already determined with the two witnesses arriving 3.5 Moedim prior to the day of the herald, which puts Michael and Elia and Jerusalem during the 14th of Abib, during Pesach, Passover, in year 5997. This is Thursday, April 18th, 2030.
There it is.
Therefore, our end date will be Saturday morning, September 24th, 2033. We can rewind the prophetic clock from there. When we do, we discover that this appalling religious edict will be offered by the Torahless one, who we will prove in a subsequent program is Donald Trump, on the 15th of March, a Friday in 2030, which of course is the Muslim Day of Prayer. This is 33 days prior to the witnesses' arrival. That's the day that this declaration will be made, March 15th, a Friday in 2030.
You heard it here first.
Therefore, Satan and his advocate will announce that he is God at this time. That is the most adroit conclusion based upon the words, the deadly and desolating, devastating and damning, stupefying and stunning, totally appalling abomination of vile religiosity of a detestable false god will be offered, appointed, and brought into effect for 1,290 days.
Oh, God.
So that is a good place for us to conclude our hour program here in Family 2 Hours.
I thought 4 years that Donald Trump was bad. Good God.
Oh yes, this is going to be an amazing.
Shall we send him a copy?
Yeah, 3.5 year period. By the way, just as a few thoughts on this, Donald Trump, as I explained in the teaser for this program, was a narcissist in his first term. Narcissists are really susceptible to this kind of thing.
He was a malignant narcissist, yeah.
And but he did some decent stuff in his first term, and it's just his mouth that got him in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
He is an entirely different person in the second term. I mean, there's no, not even any comparison between the two. He is so condemning, so duplicitous,
belligerent,
so malignant, so psychotic in this second term, so duplicitous that it's not even the same man. And so one would have to ask, when did and why did Donald Trump agree to become Satan's advocate? Because this does not happen to someone by happenstance.
Right.
You have to choose it. And so if you look after his failed election, where he could not, it was always denied. He could never accept that he lost.
Nope.
And he lashed out at everybody. He blamed everybody under the sun for his loss. And it wasn't just that he couldn't deal with the fact that he had been rejected, but he then had to deal with the fact that there was one litigation after another, that he had committed crimes. And not only was he facing one court case after another, he was losing them all. One of them was hundreds of millions of dollars. He lost 2 rape cases. Yep. He lost also the case with Stormy Daniels of doing the prostitute in Las Vegas and of election fraud based upon that case. He lost the case of falsifying records for his business. And he was about to be tried, and he was going to lose the case in Georgia, which would have condemned him for forcing a government official to falsify an election results. Yep. And he was going to lose that too. And we're dealing with prison terms in these cases. He was going to jail. And he had so many more cases up against him, including the stealing of federal secrets. And he was in real trouble. And he was losing all of his cases. And he had such an attitude that the juries were finding him guilty one case after another. And so here he was, rejected, alone, going broke, losing every case. And
even Melania wasn't talking to him.
And all Satan had to say, well, not a very good situation here. You want an out, pal? I can get you back in the White House. Mm-hmm. You can wreak havoc. You can seek vengeance against all of these people that you have blamed for this ill that has befallen you. Mm-hmm. It's just this one little thing I request of you in return. Here, sign here, Donald. You love executive orders. Sign this one. You'll go back in the White House. He agreed. And the new Donald Trump is an entirely different man. And when we return to this and we discuss exactly how he is described, particularly with the vivid depictions of him and what he does and where he's come from,
down to his hair,
we're going to find that there is no question whatsoever that we have correctly deduced that the person that Christians have pondered is the Antichrist is Donald J. Trump. He is the Torahless one who will do everything he can to oppose King Dode. And of course, he is after my case because I'm the one who precludes Satan's victory in the end. And so it is going to be an astonishing series of revelations.
For sure.
What do you think so far?
Boy, this is good stuff. This is amazing. Well done, boss.
Well, it's fun to uncover new ground. That when you find something exceedingly important, and we had this gut tell us that going back to November, that this is the guy. This is the guy that's going to do the betrayal. Wouldn't take it all the way to the point. Well, he is the person that Christians identify as the Antichrist, but we knew that this was the great betrayal, and we've just been begging Israel to pay attention. But the thing is, he's actually more popular by far
Oh yeah, in Israel.
in Israel than he is in America.
Yeah.
He's their new Cyrus.
Yeah.
No joke.
Oh, by the way, one of the things that's interesting, it says that he has thousands of people who kowtow to him, who are,
Sycophants.
Yeah, sycophants, but 10 times that number who sit in judgment of him.
Wow.
So,
Well.
yeah. And, one of the things that I think it was you, Kevin, that first said, he's going to be an old guy. He'll be 87 years old by the time this is all over. That's not the picture that we have because there's so many allusions to this Torahless one, this Antichrist. Nobody has ever pictured him as an old man. And one of the things I told you is, the last one to be demon-possessed was Muhammad. Mm-hmm. He was 66 when he was diddling the 6-year-old girl. Yeah. And it was another... 22 years after that. So, he's essentially 88, same age when it's all over.
Yeah.
Okay. That's Muhammad. And then Paul, we don't know what age Paul was when he went to rabbinical school, because Paul didn't have a very good memory and he couldn't keep his own story correct. But he was likely 40-ish when he went to left tent making and Taurus and came down to starting making trying to be a rabbi, and he wrote from 52 to 66. And so if he was therefore 40 at that time, then he would have been in his late 60s, early 70s. Mm-hmm. So an old fellow, and particularly at that time, that was really old at that time.
Right.
And then you look at on God's side, Moshe. Moshe was 120 when it was all done, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Abraham was in that same range. So I'm going to be 77 when it's 78 when it's all done. 78.
Yeah.
It's all done.
True.
So it's the age isn't germane in that sense. Plus the fact this guy's not going to get a demon from Satan. He's got the full McGillicuddy.
Yeah.
And so Satan is going to animate him more and more. He's going to tap in more and more.
More and more.
Right.
The devil himself.
Right. Is going to. So he's going to be very empowered. Now, it is true that he does say that he's in a wheelchair. That eventually he ends up in a wheelchair. It talks about the wheels of his chair being really flashy. Because Donald Trump is really flashy. I don't know if you've seen what he's done.
100%.
He's actually gilded some of the ornamentation in the Oval Office. He turned it into his own little whorehouse.
I bet you has gold wheels.
He does have flashy wheels. Is one of the things he says in his chair. So his chair has flashy wheels. And he just was diagnosed with a vascular disease.
Right.
It's causing his legs and arms to expand because he's not getting his veins are not able to return blood flow back to his brain. So he's really susceptible to being animated by Satan, and Satan is going to be bolder and bolder in controlling his mouth and his mind and his body. So it is going to be an interesting watch. But we have not only identified Donald Trump as the Antichrist, but you're going to hear in subsequent shows proven it absolutely and irrefutably.
Thank you, Yahowah. This is great.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fun to be at the forefront, and this is the kind of thing too that is important for Yahowah to convey through us, so that Yisrael and Goyim listen to what God says through us and trust what He says through us, but also to garner attention. Mm-hmm. This may be the hook we're looking for. Perceived to be. Yeah. The single most important discovery is who this guy is. The single most important discovery was actually recognizing Jesus never existed, and that Dowd is the Messiah and the Son of God who was crucified in 33 CE, fulfilling Passover. But no one else even knew to be looking for that.
Right.
This one they're looking for, and we've come up with their answer.
I got to tell you, I'm a little disappointed.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's retarded. Like, I hate him already. I was looking for somebody new to hate. How can I hate him any more than I already do? Ugh.
It's interesting here that our identifying Donald Trump had nothing to do with personality issues.
Mhm.
It had nothing to do with political issues. I'm actually too conservative to be a Republican, so I don't dislike him because I'm a progressive or a Marxist or something of that nature. I'm way too conservative and too big a fan of free enterprise and personal responsibility to be a Republican. But it doesn't mean that I was a supporter of cackles. As you know, being part of the covenant, we are apolitical. I despised cackles and Marxism and mock Marxism on a regular basis.
Right.
So we're not doing this from a political perspective. We're certainly not doing it from a religious perspective because we're anti-religious. We're doing this because this is where the words lead.
Right.
And it was obvious that this is where the words lead. And so we're going to tell you what the word of God says pursuant to this man. And, you're running out of time for an alternative because Gabriel Dode was very specific pursuant to that 7-year period and how the covenant will be affirmed with many at this time, and that person who does that is the Torahless one. He is the Antichrist. And that's obvious. And Yeshaya, Isaiah, tells us that the Israel is narrowed at the waist and becomes indefensible prior to the Shabuah harvest. And that's just 10 months away.
Yeah.
That's the same event describing the same thing, and it's 10 months away. You have to have somebody who is profoundly important in the world who is orchestrating this. And what we find is that Donald Trump has already announced it in the White House.
Already dressed
and
up
he already
as
has the confab to declare it coming to New York in less than 2 weeks' time. And he has been bribed specifically for $16.5 billion to advance this agenda because of taking money from Saudi Arabia and Qatar. This is where we are. And so he has confessed to his own crime.
Absolutely.
We're just announcing it.
Yeah.
All right.
Nahum, ahead of it occurring.
The keeper of cables. We managed to get through the program without any cable glitch. Thank you.
No problem.
And it was that introductory program we did was actually to be a test to make certain that everything we had taken apart and put back together would work properly, and it certainly did. Thank you, Leah, for being here as always. And Kevin, Sir Shorts, and Captain Kirk, appreciate you. Let me know by text or email when you're available tomorrow, or do it via Rich here, and we will continue with this program because we do need to get through this material
as quickly as possible.
Yeah, as quickly as possible. Now, also keep in mind that we're about a third of the way through, maybe a quarter of the way through the material that I've so far translated and commented on, and I'm going to be progressing through the rest of it to get us through the 9th chapter. And we're halfway through the 7th. So I've got some work to do to get us a little further along because there's lots and lots of confirmations of this along the way. And normally I wouldn't announce something until we have done all of the confirmations, but it was just so clear and so undeniable up to this point.
And you can't keep anything juicy to yourself.
I can't. I'm not gonna keep it. But see, that's why I was chosen for this job, as I don't keep secrets.
You're very the man cannot.
If I could keep a secret, then I wouldn't be the right guy for this job.
Nope.
Right.
So there we are. You have to be transparent if you're going to do this job.
Yep.
So thank you, gentlemen. Happy Shabbat, to one and all, and we will talk again tomorrow. Good night.
Thank you, Rick. You too, Leah.
Good night, everybody. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.